There's a question.
Thanks, Laskin Corla. Again, I asked the Minister his views on the question of the European Debt Conference. In particular, I would ask, has there not been a change of position here from the point of view of the government? Were there remarks about broad support from the Minister of Finance to the idea of a debt conference? Were they wrongly ascribed to him? Was Joan Burton wrongly quoted in saying that the idea had merit? And is it not the case that a change of position has taken place because political self-interest has come to bear? And actually there's a very serious conflict of interest here between the interests of Fine Gael and Labour and the interests of the majority of people in this state, whereby it's not in the interest of the political parties to have a success for a Greek strategy because it would embarrass the government.
Minister number 3.
Again, I'd like to thank the Deputy for his question. While the Greek debt to GDP ratio is currently very high, my view is that when countries encounter difficulties, a process of negotiation is always better than one of conflict. Specifically in the case of the euro area member states, all programme negotiations have been conducted within the Eurogroup and ECOFIN, with IMF involvement as appropriate. My view is that these are the appropriate fora for resolving outstanding issues such as this. The vast majority of the Greek debt is official debt and is owed to the IMF and to European taxpayers. Even before we enter a programme, we contributed almost 350 million by way of bilateral loans to Greece. Spain would face a liability of 30 billion euros if they wrote off their commitments to Greece, 43 billion for France. So you can see our amount is very small comparatively, but you can see that these are big issues for big European countries and their taxpayers. The issue now for Greece is not around cancellation of debt, it's about the affordability of the debt. So that means looking at the interest rate and the maturities. Indeed, both the private and public sectors have already contributed to improving the affordability of Greek debt. In the case of the public sector, there are, of course, the options of further maturity extensions and interest rate reductions. And no doubt these options will be discussed in due course. The Eurogroup is the appropriate forum in which to consider such options. If you look at the Irish situation, we have been negotiating in relation to our debt burden all the time. Before Christmas, we restructured 9 billion of IMF debt, and we will do another 9 billion in the first half of this year. As a matter of fact, we'll be doing 3.5 billion of the 9 tomorrow, because the NTMA have the cash, and it's not what they raised on the 30-year bond. They had cash, and now the legal arrangements have been made for that payment tomorrow. So you can see that this goes on all the time. We also restructured the promissory note and the official debt through extension of maturities and reduction of interest rates. Finally, let me be clear when I say that we will respect the democratically elected Greek government. And I and my Eurogroup colleagues look forward to hearing the views of the new Finance Minister at the next meeting scheduled for mid-February.
Deputy Paul Murphy.
Thank you. If the Minister has been following Syriza and Yanis Varoufakis as closely as he proclaimed in answer to Deputy Doherty, he'll know, of course, that there's no proposal from Syriza for any taxpayers in Ireland or in Spain or anywhere else to take the hit. Their proposal, contained in an academic paper, is for the debt of all indebted countries to be written down to 50% of GDP, with the ECB to take the balance and it to come back on as that debt comes down to a sustainable level of 50% or lower. Does the Minister agree that such a solution, if it was agreed on a European-wide basis, would save the Irish taxpayer €3.7 billion a year, that would go to major infrastructural projects, it would go to house building, it would go to job creation, that it would be a much better use of the money, and that it is inexplicable that the government refuses to take advantage of the political opportunity opened by the election of the Syriza government to row in behind it and to stake a serious demand now for a significant write-down of the debt. The only explanation is because it will leave egg on the face of those that said we had a game changer, a seismic shift as a result of being good pupils of austerity.
Minister.
Well, different things have been said by the representatives of the new Greek government during the election campaign and again since the election. And there isn't, so far, a consistent set of demands. And different people have been saying different things, or at least different people have been putting a different degree of emphasis on what they've been saying. So we'll see what the Greek ask is in the end of the day when it comes to the negotiating forum. There's always an element of I think somebody said it about President Obama, you campaign in poetry and you govern in prose. And I think we're all familiar with that. And I think, well, you know, I wouldn't exonerate anybody. There's always a poetry during the campaign and prose when you have to govern. But I think Greece is in the prose stage now, and we'll see what hard proposals are. I read with interest the reports of the press conference with Chancellor George Osborne in London with the Greek finance minister, and I thought there was an interesting set of proposals emerging there.
Thank you, Minister.
On the interest rate, it's incorrect to say that a reduction in interest rates allows us to invest in infrastructural projects. Interest is not calculated in the new expenditure benchmarks in Europe. So whether there was a reduction in interest rates or not, it doesn't free up any more elbow room for spending on capital in Ireland.
Thank you. Deputy Paul Murphy.
Referring to a reduction in interest rates, but rather a reduction in the principal, with a reduction in the total amount of debt to 50% of GDP, as per the Syriza proposal. And see, this isn't a question about the Greeks coming for a Greek ask, and we, as the Irish, as creditors, all of a sudden will see how do we react to that. It's a question of whether an ask can be made by the 99%, by the mass of people in Europe who have all suffered at the hands of this austerity policy in order to bail out bankers and bondholders. And the mass of people in Ireland should be allies. We're on the same page as the people in Greece. And the government likes to really emphasise Ireland's not Greece, all the differences that exist. I mean, Greece has €100 billion more of debt than Ireland has, and they only paid €0.5 billion more in interest last year. We paid 7.5 billion, they paid 8 billion. Our banking debt, private banking debt as a percentage of GDP in Ireland is a quarter, 25%, whereas the Greek debt is 12.2%. Similarly, all the money that has gone to Greece, the money that's gone to Ireland, it's gone back out to pay the banks and the bondholders. Yes, there's differences, but fundamentally people have suffered, and it's not sustainable from the point of view of ordinary people to continue with a policy of austerity, to have massive primary surpluses in Greece and in Ireland targeted, which will only become at the expense of public services, at the expense of jobs, at the expense of living conditions.
Thank you. Minister, final reply on this.
Well, first of all, austerity ended in Ireland over 12 months ago. The most recent budget imposed no new expenditure cuts or no new taxes, and a significant amount of tax relief was given in the budget, both in terms of reductions in universal social charge and in income tax. So you can keep singing the same song, but it's last year's hit parade or 2 years ago. There isn't an austerity programme in Ireland now. The budget was mildly expansionary, and that's going to be reinforced by reductions in energy prices and by the quantitative easing proposals from the European Central Bank. So there will be quite a significant stimulus in demand coming through, and it's there already if you talk to anybody on the January paychecks. The reason why Greece's fundamental statistics, as you described them, are lower than Ireland is, in my time in the Eurogroup, 3 separate deals have been done for Greece. And the reason they're paying less interest is they're on an interest moratorium. And on their official debt, they're not paying interest until 2023. It also means there's very little scope to cut another deal. There's very little headroom left, but there's some.
Thank you,
you know, the European colleagues have done a lot for Greece, but the Greek position was dire. And their economy is a weak economy. And I don't want to get into any detail because it's not for me to criticise, you know, the present management and the previous management of the Greek economy. But there are difficulties, and there are historic difficulties in Greece as well.
Thank you.
That you would be aware of.
Deputy Michael McGrath.